Well, you've heard me say it once, and you're going to hear me say it again, and you're going to hear me say it right now and again and again. Safety is the number one thing whenever you walk onto an oil and gas drilling site, production site, or heck, even at their offices. Safety is number one. And we talked to another safety expert on this episode of The Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs. And if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
This episode is brought to you by LFS Chemistry. We are committed to being good stewards of the environment. We are providing the tools so you can be too. NAPE Expo, where deals happen. Air Compressor Solutions. When everything is on the line, Air Compressor Solutions is the dependable choice to keep commercial business powered up. Sandstone Group. Exec Crew. Elevate your network, elevate your knowledge. Texas Star Alliance. Pecos Country Operating. Fueling our future.
Well, hello again, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Crude Truth. As my teaser said, and I'll say it again, safety is always the number one thing in the oil and gas industry. Without it, we've got nothing else, and that is one of the pride and joys that we do. And heck, we pay a lot of money for experts and for consultants and for people to make sure that we make sure that every man and woman comes home every day and every night. So knock on wood and shout out to all of them out there. So in that aspect, today I brought on somebody that is just a safety expert, somebody that knows OSHA inside and out, somebody that probably has had so many different color hard hats that now they're at a level of a hard hat color that we don't even know about. And if you know about hard hats, you know what I'm talking about. My guest today is Laura Vela from Bacardi. Laura, how are you?
I'm blessed, Ray. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. And, you have been just really promoting the safety game for your company and yourself and really in the oil and gas industry. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to reach out to you and ask you to come on. As I told you in our pre-production meeting, you're not the first person that I've had on in safety. I'm sure you won't be the last, but you are just as important. And that safety is the number one. And, to all my listeners out there, again, that are not involved in the oil and gas industry, I cannot just express it enough how important safety is. So, Laura, for everybody out there that doesn't know you, who are you?
Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Vela, and I'm a safety expert. I would say what makes somebody a subject matter expert or what makes somebody an expert? If you spend over 10,000 hours doing something in a specific subject. So how did I get here?
Yeah.
Excellent question, I might say. When I was just a young girl, my father was involved in a serious workplace accident. It involved an overhead crane, and he was grazed by a load that fell. It broke several bones on his back and several bones on his left foot. He has a couple of screws in, and he was in a wheelchair as a result of that accident many, many years ago. And although I was just a child, I remember thinking nobody should go to work to get hurt. I saw the physical strain, the emotional strain, and the emotional toll that it took on our family. So that was a moment that determined the journey and the path and my passions and how I could incorporate them in helping the community. One of the many contributing factors to my father's accident was lack of knowledge and a language barrier.
Okay.
And so it's very important to me to communicate and to train and to share my knowledge, because it does nobody absolutely any good if we've got all of these regulations, all of these rules, laws, and nobody knows about them. So whether they need them translated or whether they just need to have them communicated in a way that they'll understand, that is one of my many objectives when it comes to the safety and the training of our folks. So I do utilize LinkedIn as one of my platforms to share my knowledge and to share my passion for safety.
Oh my gosh. First of all, glad to hear that your father was able to survive that. I was all excited, and then I was like, oh, dang, that's an origin story if I've ever heard one. And I can just see, you like just kind of rising up and looking up, going like, okay, this has got to be a passion of mine, because you're absolutely right. Nobody deserves to go to work in any dangerous, got to be as safety as possible. And more importantly, everybody deserves to come home every day, because I know I don't work to live. I'm sorry, I don't live to work. I work to live. And I'm sure you do. And so does everybody else that has even the harsher jobs that are out there. And Laura, I love how you said the lack of knowledge and the language barrier. Being a Hispanic myself, that's something that is always been a difficulty, is trying to get other Hispanics or Mexican, Latinos, Latinas, the knowledge that they need, because they'll show up totally different, and you got to sit there and kind of, you got to talk to them a little bit. And so the language barrier, and I think that's so cool how you're able to assist and crossing that barrier, and actually more importantly, not crossing it. Let me rephrase that. Break that barrier, because the lack of knowledge is just something that is also so important. And sometimes it's just because of the language barrier that there's a lack of knowledge. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Man, so tell me, with what you're doing over there, here you're promoting the safety, what kind of certifications, and you have 10,000 hours. I mean, that's a lot of hours. I mean, the only other two people I know, and maybe three, I'll throw in my favorite sports player too, but are Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and my favorite Tim Duncan. They always preached about, working on it 20 minutes a day, if I'm correct. And so do some other individuals. So for you to do that, wow, what kind of discipline did you have to do for that?
That's an excellent question. And learning, the more that I know, the more I realize that I don't know. So I have a bachelor's in safety management from the University of Houston in downtown.
Okay.
And while I was there, I was also working in downstream oil and gas. I was working at a chemical plant, and I had the opportunity to be an intern there. So there was several requirements that I had to understand. I was a subcontractor at ExxonMobil, and so I had to learn my contractor rules, and then Exxon's rules, and then all of DOT and OSHA and ANSI and all of, and choose the most stringent, because as we all, Exxon is a widely known brand, and so they have very, very high expectations. So from the very start, I knew that I had to, if I wanted to stay in the game and succeed, that I had to invest in more knowledge.
Yeah.
The degree helps, but it's not everything. So then I was in the crane and rigging department, and I was under some crane and rigging experts. They taught me a lot about critical lifts and how to inspect the rigging and the annual requirements and everything like that. So that was one area of my life. From there, I went on to another life, and I was blessed with industrial hygiene.
Okay.
As an additional role to have industrial hygiene. So I was responsible for safety, and now I'm a representative at Dow Chemical.
Wow.
So health is important, but from a safety standpoint, it's we'd like for it to be proactive instead of reactive. But when it comes to industrial hygiene, that's the step before safety. That's the air monitoring and making sure that, for example, the welders are not overexposed to the fumes that from the metals that they're welding.
Okay.
So that was quite interesting as well. And I had to develop some additional training within that department, because that was a niche in safety.
Yeah, I've never heard of industrial hygiene right now, so I guess it would kind of be like H2S in the oil and gas industry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, like the monitoring of the H2S. So consequently, well, after that, I went on to a different role with upstream oil and gas, and this was telecommunications.
Yeah.
That was so interesting. And that was a different side of oil and gas. So I was exposed to downstream oil and gas and telecommunications. We were providing radios and satellites for these oil rigs that are in remote locations like West Texas, South Texas, and we had North Dakota.
Yeah.
And so I was blessed with the opportunity to train the workforce that I was with in H2S. I became an H2S trainer and a PEC safety training. It's a requirement. I'm so sorry, my memory just escaped. It's also a training requirement for all upstream oil and gas workers. And so as I continue to grow and evolve and step into different roles, they've all required for me to grow and expand my knowledge.
Wow.
And each, how would I say, each transition, it sounds great now. It sounds great like in retrospect and when we're talking about them, but these are all scary situations because you're used to seeing things in a certain way, or you're used to working or operating, focusing on certain themes, right? Or a niche. And as you continue to grow and evolve, you start to see that there are so many different aspects to health, safety, and environmental. So I've had a lot of roles with training involved in them. And that's such a blessing for me because I love to talk, and not just any kind of talk, but talking with purpose.
Well, you do that. Don't you do little seminars and things like that? And I want to get back to HSE in a minute, but let's just go off of that right now. Right? Don't you discuss with seminars and teams and groups about safety? Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
And I mean, let's talk about that for a minute and what you do there and what kind of groups you look for.
Okay, I've been exposed to many different groups in different manners, and I am an advocate for networking because you never know who you're going to meet and when you'll ever see them again. So HSE works closely with workers' comp, whether it's policies and procedures compliance, or even if worst case scenario, workers' comp. But there are so many benefits and so many pluses that we don't know, that resources that are available to us. So I was selected from our workers' comp insurance to be a representative, a HSE representative for a panel of safety experts for oil and gas, upstream oil and gas. So that was quite interesting. We were given instructions on, I don't have any, well, I do have train the trainer training, but I'm not a public relations expert.
Okay, that's okay. Neither am I.
It's quite interesting though.
Yeah.
And so we were instructed on what to wear, what we shouldn't say, and even like the tone and the body language. That was, and I've also had some back and forth like this with other experts and collaborating with them, and also with team engagement. I have, well, every project or I always say life because it seems like it was a previous life when I was in a different role. I keep all of my connections, and because they're valuable connections that I've made. And so instead of reinventing the wheel when it comes to assessing an issue or a concern, I'll collaborate with my colleagues that have expertise in that area so that we can have a more well-rounded experience.
Right. I do want to throw you a bit of a little curveball because you're in the self health and safety and environmental HSE. Have you seen in the last couple of years where, oh my God, ESG has taken over the HSE in some form or fashion? Is that something that you would be willing to discuss for a second?
I'm so sorry. What does ESG stand for?
The environmental safety and governance. I guess y'all haven't had a real big issue with that. I was just kind of curious to see if that's kind of taken over your HSE stuff with your health and safety, because I know in some industries, the HSE, which is health, safety, and environmental, is getting taken over by the environmental safety and governance, which is kind of just this whole other flag. So by you just saying that right there, that's very, very comforting to hear. Also, what's very unique, and I just want to point out to everybody that's listening and are watching this episode today, the passion that you have for health and safety is just, you can feel it. And, now with all these different places that you've been, from Exxon to Dow Chemicals to all the telecommunications, you're now at Bacardi. And did I say that right?
You said it correctly.
Awesome. So tell me about Bacardi and what all your role is there.
Great. I'm glad that you asked. Bacardi is a phenomenal organization. They've been in operations for over 100 years. It's a French-owned company. Headquarters are in France, Paris, France. And they've got 5 commitments. The very first one being safety first,
right?
Which explains why I'm here. I've been here for a little over a year, and it's a great place to be at because they commit to safety and they stand by it. And it's so interesting to see how over 84 business units can be standardized. And although we have different cultures and languages and different compliance and law regulations, they've integrated the commitments to make sure that this is just standard across the globe. So that means that their top leadership is truly committed to what they say they're going to do. And so it's very comforting as a professional, and especially somebody who's very passionate about safety, because unfortunately, many times we do see that we say safety first, but then the reality is that production trumps safety.
Right.
That's the honest truth. In other places of the world, in many industries, at the end of the day, this is a business. All of the businesses are a business. So it's important to understand that. That's the very first advice that I would give to anybody, any HSE professional that's just starting out. It is important to be very passionate and to know where you stand for the people, for the community, and for the workforce, but to understand that this is a business.
Yeah.
And so that's quite interesting. Here at Bocard, we're based in Houston, Texas. We met for the majority of 40 years, a manufactured pipe. And a lot of our clients are oil and gas.
Yeah.
But here within the last 2 years, we've also started manufacturing skids and modules. So we're
Okay.
going more into the power industry. We have, unfortunately, I can't say right at this time who we're in business with and who our clients are because we have an NDA, but it is so exciting that we're expanding our reach. Is no longer just in oil and gas. The power industry is also booming.
Yeah.
And the very neat thing that the most important thing when it comes to skids and modules for us here, yes, it's a lucrative business. It's great.
Yeah.
But we get to assemble everything here in a safe and controlled environment.
Very
Instead
cool.
of having stacked work or scaffolding and a lot of elevated work, most of the work that we conduct here in the shop is assembled here in a controlled manner, and then it's just shipped so that it's just basically delivered ready to go at the end users.
Okay.
So we're minimizing the risk for the end users.
Yeah, very cool. Well, that's awesome. And, I love how you're trying to do certain things on the safety on a global scale. And the only reason why is somehow we get lumped in America as being unsafe like the rest of the world, when that's just not the truth. The truth is the standards in America outweigh everybody else's, from Kuwait to Saudi Arabia to Venezuela to Russia. It's like, a lot of the costs that we have on drilling new wells is due to safety. And so it's like, so I'm very glad to hear that maybe we can actually get the rest of the world, dare I say, to catch up to us as far as maybe some part of the oil and gas industry goes, because, I get that grief all the time of, well, why are we not, getting cheaper, or why are we not doing it like here? And it's like, guys, our regulations are more stringent, our safety's more stringent. It's like, here in America. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are fighting to get a global standard that hopefully reaches up to where America's standards are for once. That's real nice to hear.
That's true. That's true. And the majority of the business that Bocard does on the other side of the world, on the European side, is nuclear. So that's also, we're operating at very stringent levels.
Yeah.
So that anything below that is a piece of cake for us. So you're correct.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't even want to touch the nuclear. I've had on some great guests that are in the nuclear industry, and for as safe as it is, I mean, I can only imagine the safety regulations that have to go in place for it to be as safe as it is.
Right. You know what Spider-Man says?
What does Spider-Man say?
With great power comes great responsibility.
Touche. That's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm gonna have to share that next time I'm with another one of the oil and gas or the nuclear people. I have to say that with great power comes great responsibility.
That Spider-Man says that.
Spider-Man. Well, I want to kind of go back to, how the oil and gas in your background and how they correlate and how they intersect it.
Okay. I may be biased here.
Okay.
But coming from a background in oil and gas, it just gives you such a broader perspective, and you see so many deficiencies and so many gaps in the places that aren't as strict.
Okay.
So if you can do oil and gas, you can pretty much do anything else. And I may be biased there, but I've had the pleasure of working in telecommunications, marine and railroad construction, training, and now manufacturing. So I can honestly say that if we were to compare, and we should never compare in
Yeah.
anything, whether it's life or anything. But if we were to compare, my favorite is oil and gas, because it operates at a different level, and it gives you knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
You know, I cannot disagree with you on it's so many couple of similarities. And for you to say that if you can do oil and gas, you can do anything, that's actually where we got the name for our company, Pecos Country Operating. My dad was like, we did something that was very hard. We went and hiked as a me and my two younger brothers and him went and did some backpacking years ago. And we hiked up like these 15,000-foot peaks, and it was so strenuous and hard. And it was called the Pecos Wilderness out in New Mexico. And so when he started Pecos Country Energy, one of our EMP companies, he goes, if we can do oil and gas, we can do anything else. He goes, we did that peak, which was so hard. So definitely cannot disagree. I totally agree with you that yes, if anybody can do oil and gas, you can do anything else in the world. And that's why they always say if oil and gas was easy, everybody would be doing it, right?
That's right.
And the other one was I love how you've been in marine and railroad construction. My youngest brother actually got his undergrad at U of H in chemical engineering. So he's a cougar. I don't know if downtown's a cougar or not, but he's a cougar. And then he actually then went off to A&M and got a marine engineering degree. So he's very broad, and he's very traveled and diverse himself. But he works with us and out here in the gas industry. But no, I cannot disagree that hey, if you can do oil and gas, you can do anything else. Laura, for individuals out there that are looking to consult with you guys, again, how can they reach out? How can they connect with you guys?
That's a great question. I would highly recommend that you go through the business development team. We have a great leader. His name is Darren. I can give you guys the information for either Darren. We have a very diverse team here. So I'm afraid that if I start naming last names now, it'll be completely lost. So I can share the information. The more here, of course, we appreciate your business and even the thought of it. Ooh, while we're at it.
Yeah.
If I may toot my horn here, we just celebrated, and September is almost around the corner now. In September, we celebrated over 1 million man hours without a recordable incident.
Whoa, that's huge.
That is huge.
Wow, congratulations. And you can definitely tell that you're the health and safety expert. I love it. You've got the Tylenol and the first aid kit right there behind you. I love it.
Oh, absolutely. You've got a headache. Here you go. Safely go back to work.
Yeah, right.
No, but it shows that we're truly committed to their health and their well-being.
I've been doing something fun and new on the side, and I just wanted to ask you 5 rapid fire questions here as we wrap up.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What book are you reading right now?
Dare to Lead. It's right here.
Dare to Lead. Okay. Do you have a favorite sports team?
The Texans.
Okay.
I had to have something, I can't have them all to my favor. This year though.
Yeah, well, they did. They went to the playoffs with Stroud, if I'm correct, right? And okay, do you have a favorite restaurant?
I love all foods.
Okay, all right. Are you streaming any good shows right now?
Bridgerton.
Okay.
Yes.
And for when you're not doing health and safety, do you have any hobbies that you like to do?
Yes, I love to be outdoors with my kids. Anything green. Green is my favorite color. So trees, botanical gardens, museums. Now that the summer's just around the corner, natural springs, all that kind of stuff. That's my cup of tea.
Okay. Are there natural springs in the Houston area?
No, they're right. Yeah, San Marcos, Austin.
Okay. All right. Okay. I was like, I don't know about any in Houston. And then y'all had a bunch of bad weather too. So I guess everything's good over there, right?
Yes, luckily these storms have been pretty extreme lately. And I did know that I know that it went through Dallas as well. I hope all is well.
Yes, yeah, Dallas and Fort Worth. Been a long time since the whole area got a good butt kick in the way it did the other day. But knock on wood, we still have, as the time we record this episode, got a lot of people still without power, but hopefully we'll get all that turned around soon.
Hopefully so.
Well, Laura, again, I cannot thank you enough for coming on, for talking about Bacardi, and really just sharing with us your knowledge as a safety expert. And yes, you are definitely a safety expert, and I may have to, so I just cannot thank you enough for that. And I look forward to having you on again, and we'll have to talk more health and safety in the future.
Absolutely. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you and to be here on your show and to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And to all the listeners out there, again, in the oil and gas industry, safety is number one. We'll see you again on another episode of The Crude Truth.
Again, The Crude Truth would like to thank today's sponsors: LFS Chemistry, NAPE Expo, Air Compressor Solutions, Sandstone Group, Exec Crew, Texas Star Alliance, Pecos Country Operating, and Real News Communication Network.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network. Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN, you get to be the host. We handle everything else. Tour one of our 3 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Colony. Call 972-402-6333 or visit launchashow.com to find out more.